On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1975. We're going to be having a listen to Gary Wright, and he's going to be singing Dreamweaver. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. So following the sad news that Gary passed away recently, and thank you guys for all of the requests for this particular video, we are going to be taking a look at Gary performing Dreamweaver, and this is actually going to be the studio version that's been placed over the top of, I believe, a performance on Midnight Special, and that video is on YouTube somewhere as well. But just to point out about the original video we're going to be looking at, it does say on there that it's 1972, when that's wrong. It should be 1975. That's when the song was released. But I'll remove that from the screen in the edit so that we don't have to look at that being incorrect. So let's have a listen.
I've just closed my eyes again, climbed aboard the Dreamweaver train, trying to take away my worries of today and leave tomorrow behind. Ooh, I believe you can get me through the night. Ooh, Dreamweaver, I believe we can reach the morning light. Fly me high through the starry skies, maybe to an astral plane. Cross the highways of fantasy, help me to forget today's pain. Ooh, Dreamweaver, I believe you can get me through the night. Dreamweaver, I believe we can reach the morning light. Though the dawn may be coming soon, there still may be some time. Fly me away to the bright side of the moon, meet me on the other side. Ooh, Dreamweaver, I believe you can get me through the night. Ooh, Dreamweaver, I believe we can reach the morning light.
And there we have it. I mean, what a classic track this is. And my first exposure to this particular song would have been from the movie Wayne's World. Even though he's very good friends with George Harrison, his music wasn't released over here. And it means that this kind of song, that's why I saw it in a movie first. But it's just one of those songs that really sticks with you because it is so unique. It is so different because in the verse we are so straightforward, and we will jump into this. The fact that we get a total change in the groove from the verse into the chorus. And just talking about the instrumentation, the fact that Gary was just all about keys and all about synthesizers. And he just loved to, do everything on that. In fact, would make a whole album with just keys and synthesizer sounds. So here we can really pick out the bass line that's being played on keys, but it just gives it that groove, gives it that lift in the chorus. Just to point out what I'm talking about with this difference, we've got in the verse, really straight with our changes, and of course this is all played on keys.
I've just closed my eyes again.
We actually get a little bit of emphasis there as well. The second time we have this 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, kind of like that. If you want to count out the bars, then that'll be on 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're always on those numbers, which means it's just going to be really straight. There's no bounce in there yet, but we'll just have a listen on.
For the dream we've a train, trying to take away my worries of today and leave tomorrow behind. Ooh, dream weaver, I believe you can get.
And now we get this instant groove into the chorus. And I mean, it really is that bass line that's going to take your attention. It's this one, So it's that slight hesitation. Therefore, putting, if we're going 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, we're going 1 and a 2. So it's happening on the rather than happening on the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, going 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, kind of like that. So that's what I mean. That bounce is so important that's in there, because if Gary was emphasizing the and, like perfectly on the and, it would still sound straighter. You wouldn't have this groove, you wouldn't have this feel, you wouldn't have this bounce. There's got so much personality to it.
I believe you can get me through the night. Ooh, dream weaver, I believe we can reach the...
Yeah, so there isn't a great deal going on there. We've actually got the keys, that synthesizer sound swelling in. It doesn't start instantly. So that means that when the bass line is happening, when the bass line is being played, that gets more attention because of the swell of the synthesizer. It hasn't come in yet. So you get to hear that bounce, really clearly. And it's just the way that it's been mixed as well. But that swell is creating space in the mix for you to hear that first bit of groove that's happening with that low bass line. It's great as well because we had the... this, and then tiny variations in that bass line that always have that bounce in there. I'm going to take the vocal out of it for the moment because I have isolated the vocals and separated the instrumentation so we can have a listen to this bass a little bit more clearly. I say bass, the bass line being played on keys. Listen to the way that when we get back into the verse, we've now got this rim shot. So we've got a little bit of percussion now that's giving us this straightforward timing, whereas we don't really get that in the chorus, which means that chorus can be more freeform. It can have that groove to it that you just fall into. I do just want to briefly talk about Gary's voice as well. And I know that throughout his career, he thought that, you know, he wasn't really a front man, and he was much more into the arranging of songs and the writing of songs. But I mean, his voice obviously suits this song so well, but just the way that he delivers it, because he's almost got compression in his voice, but he's still got air in there. But let's listen to the isolated vocal.
I've just closed my eyes again.
And it's almost like a hint of rasp in there as well. Such a unique vocal sound. And you know, taking on this, it means that we've got this that kind of thing. Such a combination of textures that you can hear, because there's so much in there. Normally when you've got a lot of compression, you get quite a clean sound, but he's still got air in there and rasp all at the same time.
Climbed aboard the Dreamweaver train.
And there at the beginning, listen to that again.
Climbed aboard the dream.
Climbed aboard. So that's quite clean. Climbed aboard the Dreamweaver train. And then starts to get a little bit more of a raspy sound.
Weaver train.
He actually train separates his vocal cords. Train separates them, brings them back together. So yeah, I mean, not that we're going to be jumping into great detail with Gary's vocal.
Try to take away my worries of today.
Even there, try. When he went up there, yeah, might have been a more. Try. He's still got the air in the sound.
Take away my worries of today.
So it sounds really light. Worries of today. Kind of like that.
And leave tomorrow behind.
Again, just breaking off that connection.
Ooh, Dreamweaver, I believe you can get me through the night.
There, we've got that. I believe you can get me through the night. Actually, night. Little bit of air in that sound. So, I said, I'm not going to go into much detail, but it's listening to all the different textures going on here.
And leave tomorrow behind.
Really light.
Ooh, Dreamweaver, I believe.
I believe. Yeah, so more connected
If you
there.
can get me through the night.
Night. So you can hear how when he goes up there, it just gets a little bit more air. So this is the thing about performing this song. I think most singers would just go Dreamweaver, na 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 na, and kind of sing it all at one level. But that's not Gary's voice, and that's, you know, then losing a whole different dimension to this song. It's great that you can hear the voice as it was when he sang it, and this is something that's just getting lost nowadays. There are so many notes or, you know, microtones being hit that wouldn't be allowed. It's great just to hear an original song as it was sung back in 1975, especially with a really unique vocal sound that is just Gary's voice. I do want to just talk about Gary's career briefly at the end of this video. And, you know, bearing in mind that he was a child actor and was on TV and was on Broadway, and in 1959 he actually recorded his first release. It's actually released in 1960 on 20th Century Fox Records, but he was doing this all at such a young age that you'd think he'd be a household name, you know, when he was a teenager or, you know, in his late teens. But he decided that he was going to study to become a doctor because the music industry was just too unstable. So he did that, and he went over to Berlin in order to finish his studies over there. But during this time, he was still in bands and still, you know, gigging. It wasn't until he went to Berlin to finish his studies that he then gave up on his studies and started playing with his band and playing more and more gigs. So while he was out gigging, one of the gigs was a support slot for the English band Traffic. And this is where he met Island Records boss Chris Blackwell, and they realised that they had a friend in common who was James Miller, who's a record producer and musician himself. And he then got invited to go over to London, and this was being invited by Chris over to London, and that's when he joined Spooky Tooth. And we're talking about the late 60s here, so he would have been in his probably late teens at that point. But Spooky Tooth did record and release a few albums, but you know, they weren't a huge band, and they got a little bit of coverage in the press, but they didn't make a huge amount of sales. So in 1970, after Spooky Tooth, he signed a solo deal with A&M Records and then got working on his album called Extraction. But that same year, he was asked to play keys on George Harrison's triple album called All Things Must Pass, and on meeting George, they hit it off. They had a shared interest in Indian religion, and it's certainly someone that Gary referred to later as his spiritual mentor. So they got on really well personally, but also in the studio, because Gary would then end up playing keys on all of George Harrison's albums throughout the 1970s. But sadly, Gary's album, Extraction, didn't do particularly well. Another bit of trivia is that he played keys on Harry Nilsson's Without You, and I do have an analysis video on that song. If you want to check that out independently, you can do. But his next album, which was going to be called Ring of Changes, sadly got cancelled by the record label. So again, things weren't going particularly well. In 1972, he got back together with Spooky Tooth just for a couple of years. 1974 is then when he went to India with George Harrison, and when he came back from that, he did sign with Warner Brothers Records again as a solo artist, and he did mention that the reason for that was because they didn't have any acts that were, you know, just keyboards or using synthesizers, and that's very much something that he saw as his sound. So it was then in 1975 that he released The Dream Weaver, and by the way, that just consisted of synthesizers on that whole album. So he made that vision a reality, and Dream Weaver, of course, was a huge hit. Looking back at his career, of course, we're talking about 1975, so it's not as if, you know, from a kid he was then instantly famous and it was all very easy. He spent a lot of time just working in the studio, doing a lot of session work and just really plugging away at what he was doing in order to then finally have his time in the sun with that album in 1975. But anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and thank you guys for requesting it in the first place, and I'll catch you guys at the next one.